it play and call it work.
Hello there, Wargamers, and welcome to MiniWarGaming and another new Space Marines Codex Supplement review. Today you have Luka here talking about the new Salamanders that have come out in pair with the Imperial Fists. Now, Steve will be spearheading the Imperial Fist stuff. If you're curious about them as well, he has done a first impressions review as I am myself. Now, we are going to be talking about the new stuff that have come out in these codexes, what they can do, what they're best at doing, and certain synergies with the Space Marine units you have available to yourself. We're going to be talking about the new characters that have come out. We are going to be talking about the stratagems, relics, warlord traits, psychic powers, and general power of it, I suppose, if you're curious about that. I'm not going to go into too much detail about how powerful and strong, or sorry, cheesy these guys may be. I don't think there's a lot of that. There's not a whole lot. No, there's definitely a lot of potential gotcha moments with these guys. But, they're kind of like one-trick ponies. They'll get your opponent once if you play with them a lot, and then they'll get used to it, and they'll definitely know what to target. Now, I'm going to get it out right away. Aggressors are probably the best thing for this book. Either build. The Flamer's better, but harder to use, and the Boltstorm Gauntlet stuff is okay as well. It's just really good because of the range, and they're always more reliable. But the Flamers have so much more potential, and I'll get into that, and I'll try and keep that segment short, because I could talk about Aggressors forever. Now, as with everything else, this is honestly Codex Aggressors. So Aggressors stand out more than anything in this in these releases. The only one that I think they don't work the best, the absolute best for so far, is probably Iron Hands, and they're still really good in Iron Hands, just because they are Aggressors. Heck, Aggressors are even good for Blood Angels and Space Wolves and Dark Angels. They're just good across the board. Now, what we're going to try and do here is go through the character, talk about his new rules and what he's good at doing, and I'm going to go back with some synergies to the characters like Vulcan or Drax, and how they work with certain units really well if you want to run them in your list. Because if you're playing like pure Salamanders and you want to run these named characters, that's great, and they can perform very well in your lists. Though you don't need them; they're not like a must-add to your army, which is always nice as well. They're good when used with your army, but you don't need to bring them, so you don't feel like you're really missing out on something. But they are a good strong add to your list. Also, I have played a game against Tau with Salamanders. To kind of go along with this first impressions, to give myself a little bit more insight when doing this first impressions discussion with you guys, so I at least know a little bit more of what I'm talking about when playing with the new Salamanders. Now, I've been dabbling in the new Space Marines ever since they've come. I've been playing Space Marines for quite a while. Obviously, all in 8th edition and in 7th edition, and and just been dabbling trying to find like my favorite chapter in 8th edition. It's been Space Wolves so far for the most part. We all know Space Wolves are like Codex Disappointment or Endless Disappointment, but they're still fun to play. Now, I've been also kind of eyeing Salamanders because I liked their trait, the whole Master Crafted or Master Artisans kind of motive they have, and that's been kept going strong through this. And I must say that if you are familiar with the Salamander's combat doctrines and how they like to actually invoke war, this book does that incredibly well. It does everything that they do incredibly well on the battlefield. Every time you play as Salamanders in a game with your friends or at your local game store at a tournament, you feel like you are playing Salamanders. One of my favorite things with these Codex Supplements, and I want to see Games Workshop do these with Chaos Legions, is that I'm a big fan of the Horus Heresy, and I feel that these supplements make these feel like their Horus Heresy counterparts, and they're all very unique. And someone who's now playing Salamanders is so vastly different from someone who's playing Raven Guard or one of their successors. And everything, I think these are very powerful adds to the game, and it kind of goes along with that Codex power creep. Yes, it's very relevant, it's very true, but at the same time, it's making 8th edition, well, more akin to something that I like. I like huge diversity in armies. I honestly, if I was to be frankly honest, I don't care about balance. I like things to be, to a degree. I want things to be very unique, and if that makes them very powerful or just blatantly more powerful than certain other armies, like a whole rock, paper, scissors thing, like this army will, no matter what, beat another army no matter the skill level, that's fine. I don't care, whatever. As long as they play very much like they should. And that's all that's important to me. I want my army to feel like I'm playing my army. I don't want it to be generic, balanced, these guys can do that, these guys can do this, just like those guys can do that. Like, that's fine in design philosophy. That's perfectly great. But in this regard, I think that Games Workshop is doing a wonderful job with these Space Marines. Yes, Iron Hands are super powerful. Yes, all the other Space Marines are super powerful as well. Are they? Well, currently, yes, I think the Iron Hands are dominating the meta. As I think, I could be wrong. As I discussed this, the Iron Hands are at like a 80% win rate since they've been allowed into the tournament scene since their newest release. Not including mirror matches versus Iron Hands on Iron Hands, because that would just mean Iron Hands win. So that's just everything but Iron Hands. Like, they're nuts. They're crazy high right now. Salamanders, I think, in my opinion, are way up there as well. I don't know. If I had to tear them all out, it's hard because they're all very good at different things. Salamanders are way up there for just like pure hitting force, and that's what you want in this kind of army. These guys will literally just walk up the board, holding down the triggers on their bolt guns until there's no enemies left, or until there's no salamanders left. Salamanders always kind of fight to the last man, right? As most legions do, or chapters, I should say. But in this regard, they're all about like self-sacrifice, heroics, and things like that. And this book does this very well. Let's get into it before I dabble too long. Now, the first thing we're going to be talking about here is Adrax, the newest Primaris kind of model named character that the Salamanders get. Now, he's been around in the lore before. As I've been told, I'm not too familiar with modern Salamander lore. I know more about them back in the Heresy. But we have Vulcanistan and Adrax Agatone. I'm going to assume that's how it's pronounced. It could be Agatone, or Agatone. Doesn't really matter. They're both about the same point cost. Adrax is 140 and Vulcanistan is 130. Now, they both do very different things. Vulcanistan is obviously a little softer version of Adrax, because Adrax is at 6 wounds, Vulcan's at 5. Vulcan's not Primaris, Adrax is. Adrax is amazing in close combat, Vulcan's okay in close combat, but they both have like specific rules built in that are quite good. Now, Forge Father, this is Vulcan's rule. I think it stayed the same. You get to reroll hits, and you can reroll wound rolls for attacks made with Flama or Melta weapons by models in friendly Salamanders that are within 6 inches of Vulcanistan. That's very good for certain things I'll discuss later on, and I'll reference these guys. So again, rerolling all wound rolls for flamer weapons, that's going to be huge for aggressors with Flamestorm Gauntlets, because that's a lot of hits with them that get to automatic hits, and they're all rerolling if they're near Vulcanistan. Now for Adrax, he's got a almost completely different. It's Onto the Anvil. You get to add 1 to wound rolls for Salamander units that are within 6 inches of him for melee attacks if they charge, recharge, or heroically intervened. And that's... Now, in my opinion, close combat's a little rough in this edition. Now, obviously, if there's not very high structures and you're playing on like a more flat table, or even a flat or dense table where you can't hide your units up high and you're forced to stay on the ground, then yes, close combat can be pretty brutal, especially if you're playing the new Space Marines with Shock Assault and all these additional rules that help them out in close combat. Like this one, +1 to wound in close combat is huge. So on the turn you charge, you get +1 attack on everyone, and you get +1 to wound now as well, just by being Salamanders, and obviously including this guy. And this guy has got a 4 damage Thunderhammer. That's pretty nuts. With +1, and it's just literally 4 damage Thunderhammers, nothing else other than -1 to hit, strength times 2, -3. He's also got a Flamer that is -1 AP as a kind of pistol. It's called Dracus. It's just a big Flamer, -1 AP though. And -2 in the Tactical Doctrine, that's pretty good. And that's pretty much it for them. Now, again, I'll reference them later on when I get back to them, but they are tactic. So if you're a Salamander, your chapter tactic is... You get to, for each unit, you get to reroll 1 hit roll and 1 wound roll, and that's for both the shoot and the fight phase. In addition to that, you ignore armor penetration values of 1. Not reduce it by 1, but of -1. So something like a Gauss Flare or a Bolt Rifle or AP 1, armor penetration 1. You just flat out ignore that. It's AP 0. Now, if the weapon is more like a plasma or a battle cannon or something like that, where it's AP 2 or more, you suffer the full effects of that. Which I would have rather them have ignore 1 level of it, so always reducing it by 1. Obviously, that'd be incredibly powerful, but whatever. They're Salamanders. It's cool. Let them have it. I always thought Power Armor should have done that to begin with. By the way, I've said this multiple times in the past. I could see why that'd be too powerful, given they have everything else. But I just think it would have been cool. Like I said, don't care about balance. I like cool stuff. And just don't bring things with AP against Salamanders, because they counter it, obviously. So there's always things like that. Now, everyone gets a Doctrine tactic as well. Or a Doctrine ability. So based on whatever Doctrine they're in. Salamanders like to play in the Tactical Doctrine. And I'd like to imagine they're probably always going to stay in the Tactical Doctrine. Certain other chapters, like the Imperial Fist, I believe they play very well as well. Games Workshop has done an amazing job with the Imperial Fist. They want to kill all the vehicles and then go to the Tactical Doctrine and probably stay in that Doctrine. This one just wants to get out of the Devastator Doctrine right away. Unless you want to build for the Devastator Doctrine, you can do that. But ideally, they want to stay in their Tactical Doctrine. Their ability isn't the most powerful, but it works very well with what they have. And I want to say right now, before I get to the stratagems, this book, it's okay in general, but when you get to the stratagems, that's where all the power comes from. Whereas things like the Iron Hands, sure, the stratagems are really good, but their strength comes from their abilities and their chapter. They have 5 abilities in total from their Doctrine rule and their chapter tactic. These guys, pretty tame in that regard, but their stratagems are nuts. And I'll highlight the strongest stratagems and what you can do with them in a moment. They have the Promethean Cult as their rule. This allows their Meltas and Flamas flamers to be +1 to wound while they're in the tactical doctrine. So they're in additional AP on all their flamers and their meltas. Melta's a little redundant, but hey, it'll matter. It will matter for certain things in cover or 2-up armor saves. It will matter there. Now, +1 to wound is huge. That's +1 to wound on flamers and meltas. It doesn't matter if they're in half range or anything like that. It's just straight up +1 to wound. Now, I want to note that I feel like this is what meltas should have always been for anyone that can take a melta. A melta should have always been +1 to wound if it's in half range against a vehicle, I guess. It doesn't really matter to me. But +1 to wound in half range in addition to its roll 2d6, take the highest for damage when they're in half range. Now, Salamanders, I feel, have proper meltas. I would have liked for everyone to have that rule, and then Salamanders have an even better melta rule, maybe +2 to wound, which is maybe redundant or pointless. Something else completely. It doesn't really matter. Whatever. Maybe they always get the melta rule no matter how far away they are. But in this regard, Salamanders have proper, good meltas. If you bring meltas to a game, they will be effective in the tactical doctrine, and they will be tearing vehicles apart, or monsters, anything like that. Their meltas are good. Now, if you want to skew into meltas, that's your choice. From what I used in the game, I had to draw from a pool of models that I have, and I tried my best. I focused on Aggressors and Stern Guard veterans, because when it comes to Space Marines, and especially the new Primaris stuff, it is actually hard to spam entire units of flamers and meltas, mostly because of the stratagems you have access to, because the stratagems target one unit. So you want to have a big unit that has access to all these weapons to really benefit from the stratagems. And off the top of my head, I could be wrong, there could be more. When I want a unit of all flamers, I think of Aggressors, I think of Stern Guard veterans with combi flamers. When I want a unit of all meltas, I think of only Stern Guard veterans with all meltas. Now you could do a squad of Devastators with multi-meltas, and I don't know if Devastators can take heavy flamers, but that could be something to consider, especially them coming in from a drop pod or just driving up in a Rhino, because though I might be thinking of the Heresy, because the heavy teams can all take heavy flamers. I don't think Devastators can take heavy flamers. Now, I could be wrong. Not that that matters. So right away, that's where Aggressors kind of shine with the Flameburst Gauntlets. Now, granted, their ranges aren't increased, and there is no way to increase their ranges. Not that I've noticed at my first, well, this is my second glance at the book, well, second read through of the book, where you can't increase the range of flamers. So the flamer aggressors still suffer the fact that you have to get within 8 inches. But you know, if your repulsors are surviving, your repulsors are quite durable as a salamander because you do ignore AP levels of 1. So you kind of always have that 3-up save unless you're getting hammered down by las cannons and stuff like that. But there's ways to help your repulsors out as well with your psychic powers and other things, the stratagems and good stuff like that. Yeah, I can't think of any other units. So it's pretty much Stern Guard and Aggressors. Now there's obviously like Redeemer Land Raider, which is good. It's got a lot of flamers on it. It's got the 2 big flamers on it at least. And then you can bring Tactical Marines. Like none of the new Primaris stuff other than Aggressors really utilize flamers, and none of them utilize meltas at all. So you're really going back to the old stuff with this book. So you want a good mix of Primaris and non-Primaris if you want to really utilize a lot of stuff in this book. This is quite a powerful ability, by the way. The Cult. It's not like over the top powerful, like, wow, I can't believe you have that ability, just +1 to wound. But when we get to the stratagems, you'll see why. Now, they have 6 warlord traits here. We have the Anvil of Strength, +2 strength to your warlord. This is the one they had before. Miraculous Constitution. On a 6, they ignore damage, or they shrug off damage, and they regain 1 wound every turn. Never give up. So at the start of the battle round, you can select the Salamander unit within 6 inches of this warlord, and until the end of the battle round, they have the Defenders of Humanity ability, which means they are objective secured. So you can give your warlord a warlord trait that makes himself objective secured at the start of every battle round, or he makes another big unit nearby him objective secure. So you don't have to worry about your troops getting killed off. This is kind of one of those, it goes in tow with Salamanders, the whole, it's literally called never give up. So Salamanders always fight to the last man. So as long as you always have, as long as your warlord's still alive, you'll always have something that's objective secured. That way you can always have something that's scoring, which is always nice to have. Forge Master, +2 toughness. Kind of goes with the +2 strength, +2 toughness. The Salamanders are all about their constitution and their own physical strength and their sheer determination, and that's represented in these warlord traits. The next one is Lord of Fire. You can reroll the dice to determine the number of attacks made with flame weapons to Salamander units that are within 6 inches. Now, again, I think that's only going to be super useful for Aggressors with flamers. If you want to go that route, again, I still think the Bolster Gauntlets are probably better because you'll get more out of them, but I think you're going to have more fun with the Flameburst Gauntlets. Other things that could work with Stern Guard with flamers, but again, Stern Guard are very expensive with combi. They're 1 wound, 3-up armor save, so I wouldn't really recommend them, but they are fun to use. They can be powerful, but you can't really drop pod them in because they don't flame. You ideally want to have your Stern Guards in a Rhino with Combi Flamers, and then maybe a character with Lord of Fire. That could be kind of cool. And they're all +1 wound with AP1 because they're in the tactical doctrine. All your assault weapons are AP1. That could be something you could do for something fun to do. If you really, really miss your Sternguard vets, or if you've always wanted Sternguard vets, this is something you could do with them. And Patient and Determined is the last warlord trait they have. Once per shooting phase and or once per fight phase, when resolving an attack made by this warlord, do not make a hit roll. It automatically scores a hit. And if you're curious who gets what warlord trait for the two named characters, you have, again, Vulcanistan and Adrax. Adrax gets Lord of Fire, which he forces everything nearby him to reroll the dice when determining how many flamer weapons you have. So he works very well with Aggressors. If you want to bring him in Aggressors, perfect combination right there. Vulcanistan has Anvil of Strength, so he's Strength +2, which is fine because that's what he had before. So I guess it makes sense that he kept that. Now, Patient and Determined. One of your weapons in the shoot phase and the fight phase automatically hit. Now, I'm trying to think, you could have guys with mastercrafted, just like random captains, have mastercrafted weapons. So they get to automatically hit with that. Or if they have Thunderhammers, or if they have Power Fists, that's kind of nice. They get to automatically, obviously, preferably a Thunderhammer. They get to automatically hit with that, which is kind of cool. I don't actually know what you would take here. They're all kind of good in their own way. I would Anvil Strength, I honestly do like for a Gravis captain. He becomes Strength 6, so he's Strength 12 with his Boltstorm Gauntlet Fist. Or you can give him Lord of Fire is a very excellent warlord trait as well. And so is Patient. I think Lord of Fire and Anvil Strength are probably my favorite ones. Now, granted, I don't know what the best one here is. They're all situationally differently good. Though if I had to build a list around a warlord trait, I'd probably definitely choose Lord of Fire. Anvil Strength is just a good personal warlord trait to have on a character you want to go around killing stuff with a Thunderhammer or a Power Fist. He will be wounding most things on 2s, other than vehicles, which will be wounding on 3s all the time. Unless they're, yeah, no, he'd be wounding every vehicle on a 3, which is nice. And now we have some relics. Now I'm going to quickly go into the relics, go over them. I don't remember any of them really standing out to me when I read through it the first time, so that means they're probably not that exciting. We get Vulcan Sigil as one of the first ones. Now, I actually just finished Deathfire, which is one of the books where in the Heresy, few of the Salamanders are scattered because they got annihilated at the Drop Site Massacre and they lost Vulcan. They found Vulcan on Macragge, blah, blah, blah. They're trying to get him back to Nocturne. It's a whole ordeal. And Numion, which is pretty much the chosen successor of Vulcan because they had no other leader that was worthy of the title. So essentially the chapter master, the new leader of the Salamanders, refused to believe that Vulcan was dead, and he took this little tiny hammer off of Vulcan's armor, and people believed that it made him do. It was kind of a belief system for the Salamanders where they believed that because of this one sigil he was able to do these, well, I want to say superhuman things. He's already superhuman, but more than what a Space Marine could do. And I'm pretty sure Vulcan Sigil is it's handed down from leader to leader to leader, and this is the same one that was in that book. So I like little shadows like that. The Ultramarines had something very similar. The Helm of Censure, which is like Sergeant Thiel's helmet. So they're doing a lot of shadows to the Heresy. So this is like 10,000-year-old relics of the chapter, right? So these are literally super old. Drake Smiter. It is a Thunderhammer, I believe. Yep, Thunderhammer. It is same profile. It's AP4 though instead of AP3. When resolving an attack made with this weapon, -1 to hit. Any unmodified wound rolls of 6, add 3 damage to the attack. So if you want real big, scary Thunderhammers on a captain, like a Smash captain, every time you roll 6 to wound, unmodified 6 to wound, so there's no way to really change that up. It's a 6 damage Thunderhammer at AP4. Kind of cool. Something you can do. Wrath of Prometheus. It is a bolt gun or mastercrafted bolt gun. It is Rapid Fire 1, Strength 5, AP2, 3 damage bolt gun. Not bad. Again, if you want to pair that with the warlord trait where you automatically hit, sure. Not bad. It's okay. The Tome of Velcona. This is the one I like. This is the one I used in the game because it kind of stood out. You can just add a librarian to your army, and this is actually really powerful. If you want to rely on your psychic powers, this is a great one. It allows your librarian to know 1 more power from the Promethean Discipline, which is the Salamander specific discipline, which I'll get into in a moment. And it allows them to get +1 to all casting rolls from that if they use powers from that discipline. So technically with this, I'm pretty sure knows additional. In addition to any powers, yeah. So you can choose your librarian to know if you have a Phobos librarian, you can go to the Obscuration discipline, or you can go with the main discipline, or you can go with the Promethean discipline. But if you take this relic, you get to know 1 power from the Promethean discipline. So you can be from the other 2 powers and still take 1 power from this discipline built in the Salamander one. So if you really like the powers from the other ones more, but you need the 1 power from this discipline, take this relic and you get that power, and you get +1 to cast it as well. Now, if you take all of your powers from this discipline, you get +1 to cast all those powers. Now, of course, this doesn't work on Smite, so you don't get +1 to cast on Smite, but you get +1 to cast all your Promethean Discipline powers. The Salamander's Mantle. When resolving an attack made against a model with this relic, subtract 1 from the wound roll. So that can pair well with the higher toughness warlord trait if you wanted that. So make your guy toughness 7 on a Gravis captain and -1 to wound, so he'd be quite durable. then I guess that still means Power Fist and Thunderhammers are wounding him on 4s, which wouldn't matter if you increase his toughness. I don't know. Anything that's not a Power Hammer or Thunderhammer, sorry, Power Fist or Thunderhammer is wounding him on 5s or 6s even. If it's like las guns and stuff like that. That can be quite good, actually. So you probably don't need that Roller Tread at all. Actually, doesn't. It kind of puts him at an awkward toughness. The next one is Nocturnes Vengeance. It's a combi flamer, and it makes both parts better. It makes it master crafted. So you have a master crafted bolt gun, which is strength 4, -1, 2 damage. And you have a master crafted flamer, which is assault d6, strength 4, -1, 2 damage. And the flamer part automatically hits. So it's pretty much, it just makes your combi flamer master crafted. But it also gives it AP. So it gives it all 2 damage and AP, which is kind of cool. And then we have the Helm of Draclos, which is Primaris only, +1 to his wound characteristic, and subtract 1 from leadership characteristics of enemy models within 6 of them. I don't like this one that much because I don't know why Salamanders would be messing with leaderships all that much. Now, if you're facing a very low leadership army, I guess you could throw this one in there because you have no other real options, but I do prefer the Tome of Velcona myself. And then they have their special issue war gear. They have the standard adamantine mantle, artificer armor, mastercrafted weapon, and digital weapons. Now, the special salamander ones they get, and these are relics you can take for your characters as well, or you can give them to your sergeants for a command point. We have the Obsidian Aquila. When a friendly model within 6 of this model loses a wound on a 6-up, that wound is not lost. They have the Promethean plate. Rolls of 1, 2, or 3. Wound rolls of 1, 2, 3 always fail, which is kind of nice, actually. That's actually not a bad warlord trait at all. At all. I think that one's real good. And then, oh, mayhap, sorry. That's pretty much it. And then they have Dragon Rage bolts. The last, it's their specific bolter. You can choose to fire 1 Dragon Rage bolt. If you do, it can only make 1 attack with this weapon. And this is obviously only for bolt guns. If you want to get like a sergeant with a bolt gun can have Dragon Rage bolts, is pretty much what I am saying. You make 1 hit roll. It makes D6 wound rolls instead. And it is also at damage 1 and armor penetration of 1. So it's 1 shot with a bolt gun that does D6 wounds at AP 1, damage 1. It's not that great. It's cool, but I wouldn't take it. I'm not going to spend a command point to give someone Dragon Rage bolts. I haven't had any opportunities where I really want to. I know there's a couple chapters that have really cool ammunition, but this one doesn't scream at me. And then you can take the Drake Blade. It's a power, for whatever reason, it's a power sword, mastercrafted power sword, or combat knife. Just I guess anything with a bladed weapon. It's a strength user, melee, AP4, 2 damage, and every time you roll a wound roll of 6, they take 1 mortal wound in addition to any normal damage they would take. It's just a better power sword. It's a mastercrafted power sword with more AP that does more wounds on 6s to wound. It's whatever. It's whatever. It's great. It's fine. It's fine. It's dandy. I'm going to go into the disciplines, and then I'm going to go into the stratagems, and we'll probably end there because the stratagems are the biggest talking point, like I said earlier. And again, check out these stratagems in the game I played because I did try and show them off as much as I could. Now, this is the Promethean Discipline. There are a couple of good powers here. There's 6 of them, as there usually is. We have Flaming Blast. I like this one because it's 24-inch range, so you can kind of be aggressive with it right away. You pick a point on the battlefield within 24 inches that is visible, and roll a d6 for every enemy unit. You have to roll a d6 for every enemy unit within 3 inches of that point you pick, and they take a mortal wound on a 4 or more. Just 1 mortal wound. It's okay. It's a great way to do like some like artillery psychic damage, or to pick off like characters that have 1 wound in the back, or anything that's trying to run away with 1 wound. Fire Shield, I think, is one of their better powers. You choose one of your units. They're -1 to hit for all shooting attacks, and they're -1 to charge as well, so to keep nasty things away from you. It goes off on a 6, so it's super easy to get off. Flame Blast goes off on a 6 as well, if anyone was curious. Burning Hands goes off on a 6. When resolving an attack made with a close combat weapon, each hit is a mortal wound, and the sequence ends. So you pretty much, your Psyker, it's kind of a weird one though, because the Psykers always have force weapons that do D3 damage. But with this one, if you just guaranteed need to get like 1 to 3 mortal wounds on someone, or wounds on someone, you do Burning Hands on your Psykers. This is actually a cool utility one, and it only works on your Psyker. They can only target themselves with this one, and every time they hit with the weapon, they do a mortal wound, and that's it. They don't roll the wound, they don't do armor penetration, they don't do their D3 damage, they just do a mortal wound. And that's great for killing off very, very weak characters, or finishing off units. He can go and be, I don't know, like a predator, and just go and hunt down weak units around the battlefield. But more or less, I feel like your librarians are going to be supporting the rest of your forces over doing that. I suppose you could have a librarian with a jump pack and Burning Hands going around hunting down weak things, if you really, really, really wanted to. Drape Skin is the next one. This one I like as well, just like a little bit. It goes up on a 6, you choose a unit within 12, and they get to add +1 to their toughness. And there's no limitation on what this can target. It can target everything. So you can have like a toughness 9 Leviathan, you could have a toughness 9 Repulsor, toughness 9 Land Raiders. I mostly think of them because going from toughness 8 to 9 is huge. Last Cannons wound on 4s, all Power Fist and Thunderhammers wound on 5s now, unless their strength is augmented as well. The Drape Skin is quite powerful. It's like, I think it's my second favorite. It's Fire Shield, Drape Skin, those are my top 2 picks. Now, I think the Obscuration School can be pretty powerful too if you're using Phobos stuff, but otherwise, taking powers from this discipline isn't that bad. If you want to throw a Librarian in your force, I think a Librarian always helps because it's kind of nice to have Smite and nice to have these utility powers as well. Fury of Nocturne, warp charge value of 6. Select one enemy unit within 18 inches and visible. Roll 2d6. If it's higher than their toughness, they take d3 mortal wounds. Now, most things are not that high toughness if you're considering 2d6. Even toughness 8 stuff. Toughness 8 is a little bit harder because you have to roll a 9 or higher because you have to roll higher than their toughness to take d3 mortal wounds. I like this just because it's just another smite. If you're looking to add a Librarian for smites and smites alone, well, here have Fury of Nocturne, take some more mortal wounds. It's very likely to go off, though the problem is it's only d3 mortal wounds. It doesn't get better than that, so it's like a much worse smite, but if you just need more smites, then you have them. With this one, you have to get it off on a 6, so it's already harder than smite to get off. It has still the same limitation, or no, it's not the limitations. No, this one, sorry. It's not the same limitations. It's 18 inches invisible, but you can pick whatever you want. You does not have to be the nearest. That's huge. So it could be that guard character with a couple wounds remaining. Or maybe you flaming blast back there and you did a damage to a guard character. He's got 3 wounds left and you're just like, okay, Fury of Nocturne, boom, he's dead. There you lost a couple commands and stuff like that. I think I only say guard characters because they're 4 wounds, but there's also Space Marine characters that are 4 wounds if they're not Primaris version of those characters and they're not captains. So that actually can be pretty clutch. I do like Fury of Nocturne quite a bit. But I think in the game I took Drape Skin and Fire Shield because I wanted more utility stuff and I didn't want the offensive stuff all that much. Now, Draconic Aspect is the last one, warp charge value of 6 until your next Psyche phase, -2 leadership of models in enemy units while within 12 inches of the Psyker. So I guess you could put that helmet on the Psyker and have the psychic power to give things within 6 inches, -3, or within 12, -2 with that psychic power. Again, I don't think it's all that great, but why not? You had the options are nice. I don't think people will be using that one too much though. Now on to the stratagems. I kind of promised myself that I'd try and keep this down to 30 minutes. I've already failed. Well, I haven't already failed, but I know I'm going to fail. I think I'm at about 25-ish or 27 minutes in. But we have a lot to talk about in the stratagems here. Like I said, a lot of their power comes from the stratagems. Now these guys here have 16 stratagems. I think that's very similar to the other chapter supplements that have come out because Space Marines are starved for command points. They need their command points very much so because they really benefit from these stratagems. Salamanders specifically so. A lot of good stratagems in the Space Marine book, even better ones in here. I don't even know where to start. I think I want to start with the most important one. The one that you're always going to be using no matter what you bring in your army. It's the Crucible battle for 1 command point. You choose a Salamander unit in your army. When they're chosen to shoot or fight until the end of that phase, anytime you resolve an attack, you add 1 to all the wound rolls. Yes, Salamanders have Veterans of the Long War, which I think was one of the most powerful Chaos Space Marine things. One of the most powerful things that Chaos Space Marines had over Space Marines, and now Salamanders have the Crucible battle. It's just renamed Veterans of the Long War. It is amazing. This stuff is great with Aggressors, with the Bolster Gauntlets, +1 wound, AP. This is you pair that together with the Chaplain, with the litany of Catechism of Fire. If you're shooting the nearest thing, you're +2 to wound. If you have Flamers, you're +3 to wound with that one, AP1. It's just nuts, guys. This is also great for a Repulsor or an Executioner. All of their shots are +1 to wound, guys. That's like, how many guns does a Repulsor or an Executioner have? The Executioner's got the one big gun, all +1 to wound. It's got all its stubbers. It's Frag Storm. It's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. And that's also really powerful if you build your Repulsor with all the smaller arms, the cheaper version. So it's got the 2 onslaughts, it's got the stubber, it's got the heavy bolters, it's got all the frag storm, all of that, +1 wound. Crucible battle, ridiculously powerful. I think the best one, but all these other ones are incredibly useful and very powerful as well. And that's actually a problem because that's a lot of command points you want to use all the time. I'll be very surprised as Salamander players, unless you're very reserved and you can spend your command points well, you're not going to have command points for more than a turn, I want to say. The next one that stands out to me is the self-sacrifice stratagem at 2 command points. This one can be pretty clutch. It depends if you have units that you want to keep in your backline and never want to get shot. So technically, you could run Devastator squads that will never be shot, that can legally never be shot, unless whatever's shooting them is actually closer to them. This is how it works. It's also very expensive, and it's expensive because characters. Now this might get changed because I think it is quite powerful with characters. So for 2 command points, you choose 1 Salamander infantry unit from your army. That's the only stipulation, so bear with me here when you choose a character with this one. So you choose a captain on foot or whatever, a chaplain on foot. So you put your chaplain in front of your devastators or your hellblasters. I'm trying to think of more backline things you can do in execute. Well, I guess no, it only protects other infantry. So this only protects infantry, it doesn't protect vehicles. But yeah, I'm thinking, I guess honestly, Devastators or Hellblasters are your best options. You choose this character, and until the end of the shooting phase, I believe it is. Yeah, until the end of that phase, which is only your opponent's shooting phase. So until the end of your opponent's shooting phase, your opponent can't target any infantry units that are within 6 inches of that 1 infantry unit you picked earlier, unless they're targeting that infantry unit and then kill him off. Then they can target the ones behind them, unless the thing they want to shoot at is actually closer to them than the one you picked. So I'm trying to think of an example here. You have your 2 Devastators back here and your character in front of them, and your opponent's shooting line is all directly opposite from you. You choose your character as the sacrificing, the self-sacrifice character, and that means everything within 6 inches of him that's infantry can't be shot at by your opponent unless they kill that character first. But if you have stuff in front of that character can't get shot. So that means all of that stuff behind your character shares that character's keyword, or character rule, essentially, without it being the better character rule, the old character rule, where you can't target other characters if other characters are in front of you. That's super powerful right there. And with that, you ideally want to use a chaplain anyways, because the chaplain's going to be there telling your Hellblasters +1 to wound, or telling your Devastators +1 to wound if they're targeting the nearest thing, right? Or +1 to hit, yeah, with the, I can't remember the other lady +1 to hit, but there's no stipulation on shooting the closest, so they just get +1 to hit. That's very powerful. I think that's the second most powerful one. Very utility-based. And now we got the fun ones. Flamecraft. This works very well with Aggressors and any entire Flamer units. So Stern Guard or Aggressors. And I think that's pretty much it. 2 command points. So pretty expensive. Not going to be used that much, but it's quite fun. And this is going to... you know what? I'm just going to do a combination of stratagems right now to give you an idea of how powerful this could be. But it costs you 5 command points to do every time. So it's not ideal. With Flamecraft, you choose one of your Salamander units. Doesn't have to be anything specific, just anything with a Salamander. Anything with a Flamer weapon, so anything with Flamer in its name. They roll maximum hits. For 2 command points, they automatically roll maximum dice. So here's some hypotheticals. Aggressors with Flamers. They have 2 Flamers each. That's 2d6 shots. That's 12 hits per Aggressor. Now, if your Aggressors didn't move, so 12 hits per Aggressor. If you didn't move, that's 24 hits automatically per Aggressor in your squad. So if you have 6 Aggressors, oh, quick math, 124 times 6, 16, so 136 automatic hits. I think that's right. So you have 136 automatic hits with 6 Aggressors with Flamers. But to be realistic, you're probably going to have 5 Aggressors, because if they're going to have Flamers, they're going to be in a repulsor. So that's 120, whatever. It's 5, oh, no, oh, I'm on the spot. 5 times 4, no, I don't even know what I'm saying times 4 for. It's 5 times 24, so it's going to be 120 hits. Yeah, I was right the first time. Okay, sorry, I don't know what happened there. Anyways, 120 hits from your realistic 5-man squad that have just come out of a repulsor. Well, you're probably thinking, well, Luka, they can't shoot twice if they came out of a repulsor. Well, you're technically right, unless you throw in Relentless Determination, which is a 1 command point stratagem, and you use it at the end of your movement phase. You select a Salamander unit from your army that did not advance that phase until the start of your next movement phase. They count as if they had stood still. And that's why Salamanders want to use Aggressors in any way, shape, or form, because for 1 command point, you can tell one of your Aggressor units, every movement phase, they stood still, as long as they didn't advance. So this is why I want to say your Boltstorm Gauntlet ones are... Oh, so this is probably the second most powerful one. Not so much the self-sacrifice, but this is the most powerful one too. This is why you tell your Aggressors to not advance, or this is why you want to run your Aggressors. This is why the Boltstorm Aggressors are pretty good, because they can move up there. They have 18-inch threat range, or 18-inch shooting range, and they move 5 inches, so they can shoot up to 23. They have a 23-inch threat range. Your Boltstorm Gauntlet Aggressors, if you're in the Tactical Doctrine, if they have a Chaplain nearby them, they could be they're AP1, being the Tactical Doctrine. They could be +1 to wound if they're shooting the nearest. And let's be real, they're probably shooting the nearest thing, because they're Aggressors. They usually do that kind of stuff. And they are shooting twice with everything with that command point. That stratagem, you're going to be using that every turn if you have Aggressors. Guaranteed. Now the Flamecraft one, you're only going to be using if you have the Flamer Aggressors. But let's do some hypotheticals here. Let's do Aggressor, Flamecraft. Let's assume you have the Flamer ones, because we got even more to go on this one. So that's 3 command points on this combo so far. So your Flamer Aggressors have come out of their Repulsor. They automatically roll maximum shots. So that's 120 shots for all 5 Aggressors. With Relentless Determination, they count as having stood still. So that is that 120 shots. And then we do the Crucible of Battle. So that's the Veterans of the Long, where they're all +1 to wound now. This might be extreme overkill for certain circumstances, but that's 4 command points. And then we use the Fires of Battle, which only really works with Flamer weapons. But you use it in your shooting phase when you select, or in your opponent's charge phase, actually. So you can do this for Overwatch with your Flamers too. You select a Salamander Salamander unit from your army when they go to shoot with Flamer weapons. Every time they roll an unmodified wound roll of 4+ with those Flamer weapons, well, they go ahead and do a mortal wound in addition to their normal damage. So math hammer, quick. Here's some quick math. So you have 120 automatic hits with your 5 Aggressors that come out of the Repulsor. Because let's be real, you're never going to get 6 up the field. Or maybe you will, and your opponent will fall for that trick once, and then they will never let you do that again. So you have your Repulsor with your Aggressors in it. Maybe you have 2 squads of Aggressors and 2 Repulsors because, well, you're like Luka and you like redundancy. They pop out, they do 120 hits with their Flamers. And they are currently +1 to wound because they're in the Tactical Doctrine. +1 to wound because of the Crucible Battle, so they have +2 to wound. And you know what? You could have a Chaplain with the Catechism, and we'll say you... Actually, no, you wouldn't, because they'd be in the Repulsor, so at the start of your turn, you wouldn't actually be able to do that. Regardless, we'll scrap the Chaplain idea. You're +2 to wound with Flamers. And let's say you're facing 3 knights in front of you. These poor Aggressors are like, well, whatever. What are 3 knights? They pop out. They have 3 knights in front of them, and you split the shots up, 2 per knight. Sorry, 2 Aggressors per knight. Now, I don't think you can kill all 3 of them. You know what? We'll say 2 Aggressors. 3 Aggressors per 2 knights. So you have 2 knights in front of you. Your Aggressors come out. 3 Aggressors shoot at each knight. You're like, wow, 3 Flamer Aggressors will never kill knights. But I'm pretty sure they do in this case. So that's 60 automatic hits per knight. Oh, no, I only have 5 Aggressors. Whatever, we'll do 3 and 2. Doesn't really matter. So it's 72 hits on one, 48 hits on the other. The 72 hits are wounding on 6s, but they're currently +2 to wound, so they're wounding on 4s. So half of 72 is 36. And for every 4 up you roll, which is everything you roll to wound, is 30. So it's going to be 36 wounding hits and 36 mortal wounds. So they just died to the mortal wounds right there. Right? Like, it's just, they don't care about the save. They just took 36 mortal wounds, everyone. They're dead. Because for every 4 up you roll to wound, they take a mortal wound. It's not for every 4, it's for every 4+. So you're wounding them on 4+. Every time you wound them, they take a mortal wound in addition to their normal damage. And if for whatever reason they have a way to ignore those mortal wounds, well, they have 36 saving throws to do at -1 AP. So they're dead. Hands down dead. Now for the other squad, a little bit less effective. It's only 48 hits on the other knight. So that means that they are going to be taking half of that in wounds. So that's going to be 24 mortal wounds. They're dead. So I guess if you had, hypothetically speaking, you could probably do, well, I wonder what 1 Aggressor does. Let's say 24 automatic hits, 12 wounding hits, so they take 12 mortal wounds and 12 4-up armor saves. That's still going to bracket a knight. So even 1 Aggressor with this 5 command point strategy, 5 combo of command points on him, is going to cripple a knight. 1 Flamer Aggressor is going to nearly kill a knight. He could. Your opponent could spike bad dice, and that knight could die. Because I think they have 20. Yeah, they have 26 wounds. So he's probably not going to die. But the other ones are certainly dead. Because the other ones take 24 mortal wounds on 2 from 2 guys, and then that means they have 2 wounds left, and they have 24 saving throws to do, so they're dead too. Yeah, it's nuts, guys. 5 Aggressors coming out of a Repulsor, if you can get them near 2 knights, those 2 knights are dead. Even if they're like 2 Castellans or Valiants, they're dead. That's nuts. But, like I said, it's a one-trick pony, and, hypothetically speaking, let's imagine we had Vulcan stand nearby them, for whatever reason. He was nearby them. You get to re-roll all those wound rolls with those Flamers. So add another 25% mortal wounds and wounds on top of them, because you're wounding on 4s, re-rolling. So you're wounding, 75% wounds go off on them, and every one of those wounds is a mortal wound. This is like the extreme overkill. That's like the for fun stuff. And you know what? I'd highly recommend running that, because that is going to blow your opponents off the table. If you can get them into a position to annihilate all their threats right away, well, they're just going to be walking around just annihilate. Even without all the stratagems, those Aggressor Flamers, as long as you spend the 1 command point every turn to make sure they stood still, they're automatically shooting twice, and that's all strength 4, AP 1, and if you have the Fires of Battle guy nearby them, they get to re-roll the amount of shots they have, so you don't need the Flamecraft automatic maximum all the time as well, so you save yourself command points there. There's a lot of stuff you can do here is what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say that Aggressors is really good, and I apologize for going on about Aggressors. I know everyone knows Aggressors are really good, but please understand that Salamander Flamer Aggressors are absolutely hilarious. And so, you know what? 5 command points is nuts. People blow command points on the Vect thing all the time just to stop people from using stuff. And you know what? This isn't even that easy to stop. Because there's 4 different stratagems. Wait, 1, 2, yeah, there's 4 different stratagems you use here. So even if one of them stops one of them, the other 3 are going to be super devastating and do a lot of damage. So this combo, it's not like a one strategy combo that someone can stop with a counter spell like stratagem. It's really hard to stop this, is what I'm trying to say. Now, let's go into the other stratagems. Rise from the ashes. Your characters, as a salamander, what a surprise, they're hard to kill. 2 command points on one of your characters. On a 4 or more, they come back to life with D3 wounds, is it? Oh, it's only 1 wound. Never mind. So they come back to life with 1 wound, as close as to where they were before. And they're like a phoenix. They rise from the ashes. Now, this is like the exact same thing as the Necron one, though it's 2 command points instead of 1 that the Necrons have. It's cool. It's not going to be used that much. And the Salamanders have the generic... if you're a successor, then you can spend a command point to get a relic. If you can spend command points to give your sergeants not the relics, but the special issue war gear, and you can give a warlord an extra warlord trait, and these are all the standard ones you can do. They have Vengeance for Eastbound 5, because that's where they suffered the drop site massacre, so they get bonuses against Word Bearers, Iron Warriors, Night Lords, and Alpha Legion. I don't know if a lot of Salamander players out there fight them often, but if they do, well, you have the Vengeance for Eastbound as well. Stand Your Ground is quite good. This is one that if your unit didn't move, use it in any phase from your army that is not a servitor and did not advance in your previous movement phase, is chosen as the target for an attack. Until the end of that phase, whenever an attack has a damage characteristic of 1 targeting that unit, you get +1 to your saving throw. So it doesn't give you cover, it gives you +1 to your saving throw. So if you're already in cover, you get +2 to your saving throw. So if you have a unit of whatever, intercessors on an objective shooting, and that objective is going to win you the game, you just make sure you stand your ground every turn, and they get a 1-up armor save. And they're salamanders, so they ignore AP1. So AP2 still makes it so they have a 3-up armor save. AP3, they still have a 4-up armor save. Unless there's more than 1 damage. Then they lose the standard ground thing, but still, not a bad one. Born Protectors is an interesting one, and this stops a lot of shenanigans in the charge phase. So it's 2 command points. You choose, say one of your salamander units are getting charged, and they are within 12 inches. Well, sorry, let me start this again. One of your salamander units is getting charged by something. They do their overwatch. You can, I'm pretty sure you do this at the same time as they overwatch or before. You spend 1 command point on another salamander unit that's nearby them and that is not already engaged in combat. That salamander unit gets to greater good. It gets to also overwatch, but the best part is, after that enemy finishes their charge, these salamanders get to do a charge as well. So it's kind of like, you charge them, no, we're going to come help. Boom, aggressors. Say someone doesn't want to charge your flamer aggressors and they want to pile into them, or to tie them up, and then just take the power fist. Well, you say, no, sir. My aggressors get to overwatch as well, and then you're going to get countercharged by them. So good luck. And if anyone's curious how that actually mechanically works, that unit gets to perform a heroic intervention as if it were a character, but their heroic intervention range is 2d6. So they're literally countercharging into the enemy. And you have to do a heroic intervention at the normal time. So it's not like they declare a charge, take both the overwatches, and then the squad that is protecting the first squad gets to charge and stop their charge. The unit that you targeted with all the overwatch gets to finish their charge, then you get to do your heroic interventions as normal. But this squad gets to do a 2d6 heroic intervention. And that is pretty much it for that side, despite the odds. If you're playing Maelstrom of War, if you didn't get any tactical objectives this turn, you spend 1 command point and you get to draw 1 extra card, which is kind of another one of those salamanders. Oh, we have not a whole lot of guys left. We're kind of losing, but despite the odds, we get a new objective. It kind of goes in tow with all that salamander stuff. Immolation Protocols. Kind of good. Again, for aggressors, it's hard to not say aggressors because everything in here works with units entirely composed of flamer weapons. They really like their flamer weapons. In fact, you'll notice none of these stratagems work with melta weapons. These are all flamer-based things. And you know what? That's fine. They really make the flamers good in this, though. But it's unfortunately, it's mostly the aggressors, the flamers. And I hate to say that, and I hate to see it. But it's welcome to Codex Aggressors. There's not much you can do about it. Immolation Protocols changes all your flamer-based weapons to pistol. That means you can shoot them if you don't fall back in your turn. You can just shoot them with pistols and beat them up in combat. That works for like a Land Raider Redeemer as well, I suppose. If you don't want to fall your Land Raider back, though I guess you would anyways because you get to overwatch every turn with that flamer. So there'd be no reason not to, but you could technically have your Land Raider Redeemer shoot its big dumb flamer, Sponson flamers. I think it's got a hull-mounted flamer as well, as pistol weapons, so that's kind of cool. And that is actually pretty much it. Oh, I lied. 2 more. The Rites of Vulcan. This is the generic Salamander-esque. Every chapter has this, is what I'm trying to say. I'm losing my words for some reason. Every chapter gets to use this. It's that you use it at the start of your movement phase. If you're in your appropriate Doctrine, every time you roll a 6 to wound with the appropriate weapons in that Doctrine, you get an additional AP. And this does break the rule where it gets to stack with your Doctrine. So in the Tactical Doctrine, all your weapons are an additional +1 AP if they roll a 6 to wound. You know, I've never actually used this. This could be pretty clutch. It's only used, you're only allowed to use it once per battle. And that's the whole it's kind of like one of those like Space Marines, like turn 1 or turn 2, you're in the Tactical Doctrine, like this is the Doctrine, everything's in position, let's light them up. Let's get everything with additional AP and just make sure they are off this table. And I think that's the whole idea of these stratagems. Every army gets them, or every chapter gets them. I have not used them personally. I'm sure a lot of you out there have. And are they good, is my question. They seem so lackluster for 2 command points, but it could be huge because it hits your whole army. So that's something to consider there. I never actually considered that. It hits your whole army. That could be pretty huge because that's probably killing like a few extra models here and there. That could very well be worth a couple command points. Now, granted, I think the Salamanders are going to be chewing through the command points very quickly in all these games, and I'd highly recommend Restraint when it comes to spending these command points because you want Relentless Determination to be used every turn. That's whenever you count as standing still, and you want to be using the Crucible Battle every turn. So that's 2 command points you're probably going to be want to be using every turn, so it's hard to justify using other command points on stratagems because without the stratagems then you lose a lot of stuff. And the last one is Strength of the Primarch. This isn't a bad one if you have close combat kind of thing. Until you choose something at the start of the fight phase, you select a Salamander unit. Until the end of that phase, they get +1 strength characteristic of models in that unit. So Aggressors go up to Strength 5, so Strength 10 with their Power Fist, and every time you roll a 6 unmodified wound roll of 6, you double the damage characteristic of the weapon for that attack. So it's kind of cool. It's only 1 CP. It is honestly really good if you're going to be doing close combat based stuff. The only good close combat stuff I can think of for Space Marines, like generic Space Marines that aren't like the Dark Angels, the Space Wolves, or the Blood Angels, are honestly Aggressors, guys. Like they have 3 Power Fist attacks each, 4 on the charge, 5 on the Sergeant when he charges. Like, give me one of like Vanguard Vets. Sure, they could be kind of cool, but they're really expensive 1 wound models. What else? Like, right? It's like guys with chain swords. Assault Marines, bikes, they could all be +1 strength. It's hard to justify. There's obviously Assault Terminators, but I know a lot of people out there don't run Assault Terminators, though they're kind of cool if you're the first. It's a cool stratagem if you're considering Aggressors. And you know what? I made a promise earlier on that I wasn't going to talk too much about Aggressors, and I apologize. I ended up talking about it, but this is one of the best supplements to use the Flamer Aggressors. And like I said earlier, you want to use the Boltstorm ones as well. It's just they're not as fun. But they're super efficient still because they have Veterans of the Long Range. Only for the fact, the Bolster ones are only really good because you can tell them that they stood still as long as they didn't advance and they get +1 to wound with the Crucible Battle. Like those 2 in combination on Boltstorm Aggressors with a Chaplain nearby, absolutely bonkers. They're all AP1 in the Tactical Doctrine. I want to say that it's both these guys and the Ultramarines that run Aggressors probably the best. It's hard to say who does it better because the Ultramarine Aggressors in the Tactical Doctrine always count as standing still, so you can run multiple or MSU units to them, and they're all very, very effective. It's just like three Aggressors over here, 3 Aggressors over there, 3 Aggressors over there, 3 Aggressors over there, and they all count as standing still. Now with these guys, you get Veterans of the Long War on bigger squads of Aggressors, so it depends on what you want to run personally, though I think the Salamander book is quite excellent, and if you haven't checked out the game already, I bid you in the vault. I played a 2,000-point game of Salamanders versus Tau. And it was, we're talking like 6 broadsides here, guys. It was a tough game, but the Salamanders, they performed very well. So if you want to check out some of the new Salamander stuff, go check out that game in the vault. It's like a 7-day free trial. You can literally go over and just watch it and cancel it. You just want to check out Salamander stuff. You'll just be fine when people go into the vault, they get a little curious and they like what they see and they stick around. Because we also have a lot of other things. We have narrative campaigns and we have a lot of painting tutorials, a lot of painting tutorials. And of course, we cover all of the other new Space Marine releases coming out. Now, this is, of course, towards the tail end of it. But if you're curious on Salamanders and Imperial Fist, check out the games they have in the vault. And I'm pretty sure Steve did an Imperial Fist versus Iron Hands kind of comparison, model for model kind of battle report. So if you're curious how that turned out, that's also in the vault. Now, with that, folks, I'm going to sign off. Hopefully, you guys gained some insight into the Salamanders. I know I went a little bit over time. It's probably about 45, 50-minute long review, which is, you know, my usual time on these reviews. Well, unfortunately for me, I ramble a lot and I get lost in my own trains of thought. But you know what? That's what makes me me then, isn't it? With that, see you guys next time. Hope you have a good day and happy wargaming.